The chronic fatigue had hit me hard that morning, the way it always did on Sundays. I'd woken at 6, giving myself 3 hours to complete what healthy people do in 30 minutes: shower, dress, take medication, and wait for the nausea to pass. The simple act of driving to my parents' house for Sunday dinner felt like climbing a mountain. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the steering wheel, a combination of exhaustion and the medication I'd been taking for the past 3 years. The doctors had tried 6 different combinations before finding one that managed my symptoms without destroying my quality of life. Lupus doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't care that your family thinks you're lazy. It doesn't care that you have a board meeting tomorrow. It just takes and takes until you learn to build a life around what it leaves behind. I parked outside the familiar 2-story colonial and sat for a moment, gathering strength. My phone buzzed with emails from the hospital administration, but I silenced it. Tonight was supposed to be about family, though I already regretted accepting the invitation. The dining room smelled like roasted chicken and disappointment. My sister, Jennifer, sat across from me, her designer blazer perfectly pressed, her expression sharp with judgment. She worked as a department supervisor at Riverside Medical Center, managing surgical scheduling. She never let anyone forget it. "You look tired," Mom said as I took my seat, though her tone suggested this was somehow a character flaw, rather than a symptom of chronic illness. "I am tired," I admitted quietly. Jennifer snorted into her wine glass. "Must be exhausting doing nothing all day." I reached for my water glass, saying nothing. This was familiar territory. I'd learned years ago that defending myself only invited more attacks. Silence was easier. Dad carved the chicken with aggressive precision. "Your sister works 60-hour weeks at the hospital. Manages an entire department. Maybe if you pushed yourself a little harder, showed some initiative." "I work from home," I said softly. "It's flexible with my condition." "Condition?" Jennifer repeated, making air quotes with her fingers. "You mean your convenient excuse. Some of us actually show up to real jobs. Some of us contribute to society instead of collecting disability checks and playing on the internet all day." "I don't collect disability," I said quietly, but she was already talking over me. "You know what your problem is. You gave up. You let one diagnosis define your entire life. Plenty of people have autoimmune diseases and still manage to function like normal human beings. You just use it as a crutch." My younger brother, Marcus, shifted uncomfortably beside me but said nothing. He never did. He perfected the art of remaining invisible during family conflicts. Mom passed the green beans, her movement sharp with irritation. "Jennifer has a point. You're only 32. You should be building a career, not hiding in your apartment pretending you can't leave the house." "I'm not pretending," I started, but Dad cut me off. "When I was your age, I worked through broken bones. A little fatigue never killed anyone. You just need discipline. Structure. Maybe if you set an alarm and forced yourself to get up like the rest of us." "Stop using your illness as an excuse," Jennifer continued, her voice rising with the confidence of someone who'd never spent 3 days in bed unable to lift her head without triggering vertigo. "Some of us actually work for a living." Dad nodded approvingly, pointing his knife at me for emphasis. "Exactly. Work ethic. That's what's missing from your generation. Everyone wants accommodations and special treatment instead of just powering through." I nodded silently and checked my messages under the table. The hospital board president had sent 3 increasingly urgent texts about tomorrow's budget meeting. The construction contractors needed approval on the new wing expansion. The pharmaceutical donation program required my signature by the end of business Tuesday. "Are you seriously on your phone right now?" Jennifer demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "We're having a family dinner and you can't even be present." This is exactly what I'm talking about. No work ethic, no respect, no ability to function in the real world. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. Mom frowned, glancing at her watch. "Who could that be? We're not expecting anyone." The doorbell rang again, more insistently. Dad pushed back from the table with an irritated sigh and walked to the front door. We heard it open. Then male voices in urgent conversation, one apologetic, one authoritative and slightly breathless. A moment later, Dad returned looking confused and slightly pale, followed by a man in an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than the dining room furniture. I recognized him immediately, Dr. Harrison, the hospital board president, still wearing his hospital identification badge clipped to his jacket pocket. "I apologize for the intrusion," Dr. Harrison said, slightly out of breath, as if he'd been rushing. His eyes scanned the room quickly and landed on me with visible relief. Dr. Morgan, thank goodness. You weren't answering your phone. I called 4 times and sent multiple texts. We have an emergency situation that requires your immediate approval on several critical matters. The room went silent. Jennifer's fork stopped halfway to her mouth, suspended in midair. Mom's hand froze on the water pitcher. I'm sorry, Dad said slowly, his confusion deepening. Did you just call her doctor? Dr. Harrison looked genuinely puzzled by the question, glancing between Dad and me with obvious bewilderment. Yes, Dr. Morgan. She's on the hospital board. We need your approval on the $50 million budget allocation for the next fiscal year. The board is in emergency session tonight because we need to finalize everything before the state deadline tomorrow morning. Several departments are on the list for potential restructuring, and we cannot proceed without the primary stakeholders' authorization. Jennifer's face had gone pale. Wait, primary stakeholder? Are you from Riverside Medical? Of course, Dr. Harrison said, still focused on me. Dr. Morgan, your sister's department is actually first on the restructuring list. Surgical scheduling has been underperforming in cost efficiency, and the board wants to know if you'll approve the proposed changes or prefer alternative solutions. I set down my water glass carefully. My hands had stopped trembling. What's the timeline? Tomorrow's board meeting, 9 a.m. We need your decision on whether to approve the department consolidation or maintain current staffing levels. It affects 17 positions, including the supervisor role. Jennifer made a small sound like a wounded animal. Give me the full analysis, I said quietly. I want efficiency reports, patient satisfaction scores, and alternative restructuring proposals by 7 a.m. tomorrow. Schedule the contractors for a pre-meeting at 8. The new wing expansion takes priority, but I won't make staffing decisions without complete data. Dr. Harrison nodded, already typing on his phone. I'll have everything sent to your secured server within the hour. Should I tell the board to expect you in person, or will you be joining remotely? In person, I said. This deserves proper attention. Excellent. And the pharmaceutical partnership proposal? The deadline is Tuesday. Approved with the modifications I sent last week. Legal should have the revised contracts ready. Perfect. Again, I apologize for interrupting your evening. Dr. Harrison nodded to my stunned family and left as quickly as he'd arrived. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom spoke first, her voice barely a whisper. What just happened? I took a sip of water, letting the moment stretch. That was the board president of Riverside Medical Center. I gathered that, Jennifer said, her voice shaking. What did he mean by primary stakeholder? And why did he call you doctor? Because I am a doctor. Medical degree from Johns Hopkins. I finished my residency in internal medicine before my lupus diagnosis became severe enough to prevent traditional practice. Dad's face had turned red. You never told us you finished medical school. You never asked. You assumed I dropped out when I got sick. I let you assume it. But the hospital, Jennifer pressed, her professional composure cracking. What does that have to do with you? I stood slowly, gathering my coat and bag. The fatigue was creeping back, but I needed to say this standing up. 3 years ago, when my grandfather died, he left me a substantial inheritance. You all knew that. What you didn't know was how much, or what I did with it. I invested $20 million into Riverside Medical Center when they were facing bankruptcy. The board needed capital desperately. I offered them a lifeline with conditions, a 47% ownership stake, a permanent seat on the board, and complete authority over chronic illness program development. I paused. They accepted within 72 hours. Jennifer's chair scraped loudly. That's impossible. I would have known. I work there. Why would you know? You're a scheduling supervisor, Jennifer. You don't attend board meetings or review financial statements. You process surgical calendars. It's important work, but it's not executive level. You wouldn't have access to shareholder information. The words landed like physical blows. Jennifer's face cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally fear. When the hospital recovered and expanded, I continued, my investment tripled in value. I'm now the largest individual shareholder. Last year, I donated another $15 million for the new pediatric wing being built right now. The construction Harrison mentioned. I also established a chronic illness treatment program that provides free care to patients with conditions like mine. It's funded through pharmaceutical partnerships that I personally negotiate. Mom had started crying silently. Why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you? Between accusations that I'm faking my illness, or during the lectures about getting a real job, I come to these dinners and listen to you all explain how I've wasted my life. I've learned it's easier to just let you think what you want. Marcus finally spoke up. That's not fair. We didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected gently. I've tried to tell you about my work. I mentioned consulting for medical facilities. I talked about healthcare investment. You all decided it was meaningless because I do it from home in my pajamas on days when I can barely stand. Dad found his voice. But you said you work from home, that you have some kind of flexible arrangement. I do. I consult remotely for 6 different hospitals on chronic illness programs. I review medical research proposals. I negotiate pharmaceutical donations. I manage my investment portfolio. I do it all from home because some days I physically cannot leave my bed. But I built a career that works around my limitations instead of giving up. I moved toward the door. Jennifer, I suggest you update your resume. Not because I'm going to fire you, but because the department restructuring has been needed for months. Your performance reviews show consistent problems with efficiency and staff morale. The board has been pushing for changes. I've been holding them off, trying to give you time to improve. You've been protecting me? Jennifer's voice cracked. You're still my sister. I don't have to like you to hope you succeed. But tomorrow, I have to make a decision that affects 17 people's livelihoods and patient care quality. I can't let family loyalty compromise patient safety or hospital efficiency. I paused at the door, exhaustion pulling at my bones. For what it's worth, I didn't do this to punish you. I didn't even plan to tell you. But I'm tired of being treated like I'm worthless because I'm sick. I'm tired of pretending to be less than I am just to make you all comfortable. Wait, Mom called out. Don't leave like this. We can talk about this. We've been talking for 3 years. You've just never been listening. I drove home in silence, my hands trembling again on the wheel. Not from weakness this time, from relief. The next morning, I joined the board meeting from my home office, appearing on the conference room screen while wearing professional attire from the waist up and comfortable pajama pants below. Nobody could see them. This was one of the accommodations I'd negotiated, remote attendance for medical reasons. Dr. Harrison presented the restructuring proposal with detailed slides. Jennifer's department would be consolidated with another unit, eliminating her position but maintaining all junior staff roles. The plan included retraining programs, improved scheduling software, and a 3-month transition timeline. It was efficient, cost-effective, and improved patient scheduling times by 30%. The data was thorough. I listened to the full presentation, reviewed alternative proposals, and asked detailed questions about patient impact and staff retraining. I questioned the cost savings, requested clarification on satisfaction metrics, and pushed for a 4-month transition instead of 3. The board discussed and refined the proposal for 90 minutes. My ownership stake gave me influence, but hospital administration required collaboration and careful consideration of patient care impact. Then I voted to approve the restructuring. Jennifer found out that afternoon through official hospital channels. She called me once, but I didn't answer. She sent a text. I understand. I wasn't sure if she really understood. Maybe she just understood that actions have consequences. Maybe she understood that the sister she dismissed as lazy had been holding more power than she'd imagined. Or maybe she finally understood that illness doesn't equal worthlessness, and that working from home doesn't mean not working at all. 2 weeks later, Jennifer was offered a lateral position in patient advocacy. Slightly lower pay, better hours, less stress. She took it. According to Marcus, she stopped bragging about 60-hour weeks and started leaving at 5. She mentioned therapy once. My parents sent a card 3 weeks later. Not an apology exactly, but an invitation to Thanksgiving with a handwritten note. We'd like to hear about your work. Really hear about it. We made assumptions that were unfair. We'd like to start over if you're willing. I haven't decided if I'll go yet. The invitation sits on my kitchen counter. Some bridges take longer to rebuild than others. Some might be beyond repair. Trust doesn't automatically restore itself just because someone finally recognizes your worth. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone. Even family, especially when they only changed after discovering your power rather than recognizing your inherent value. But I'm done shrinking myself to fit their limited understanding of success. I'm done apologizing for being sick, for taking medication that makes me functional, for building a life around my limitations. I'm done pretending that creating a meaningful career on my own terms is less valuable just because I do it from my couch on bad days. I built something real, something that helps people, something that matters. And if my family can't see that, it's not my responsibility to make them understand anymore. The hospital construction continues. The chronic illness program serves 200 patients now. My investment portfolio supports 3 other medical facilities. And some days, I still can't get out of bed. Both things are true. Both things matter. I'm learning to be okay with that.